Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the BPM Change Management PRRR Review Monthly Meeting. My name is Nicole Hines, representing ISO Customer Readiness, and I will be facilitating today's web conference. Today's call is being recorded. These recordings are for informational and convenience purposes only, and any related transcripts should not be printed or reprinted without the ISO's permission. We will be taking verbal questions throughout the call today. You can enter the question queue at any time by pressing pound 2 on your telephone keypad. Please introduce yourself before asking your question. As a reminder, these monthly calls are structured to stimulate an honest dialogue and engage in different perspectives. While we welcome comments and questions, please remember to keep comments professional and respectful. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the proposed revision requests that are in the initial or recommendation stage of the process. We will be discussing 23 PRRs today. 9 are in the initial stage, 14 are in the recommendation stage. 2 were submitted by Goodwill Consulting on behalf of the Western Power Trading Forum, and 21 were submitted by the ISO. One housekeeping item, we have received a few questions about PRR 1282 that was put on hold last year. We have withdrawn this PRR. If you have any questions about the withdrawal of this PRR, please send us an email to bpm_cm@kaiso.com. The purpose of the BPM is set forth in business practice that implement the ISO tariff. The ISO conducts a yearly policy initiative roadmap process to consider and rank initiatives. Policy changes submitted through the PRR process will be referred to the policy initiative roadmap, and each subject area in a BPM is based on enabling language in the ISO tariff. The PRR process cannot be used to introduce changes that are not supported by existing tariff authority. First up today, we're going to be talking about our market operations BPM. We have 4 PRRs in the initial stage and 1 in the recommendation stage. PRR 1360 is for summer readiness as it relates to market operations BPM for effective July scheduling priorities for exports and loads. PRR 1359 relates to summer readiness 2021 as it relates to market operations BPM effective July penalty prices. PRR 1348 description of losses impact our POR energy LMPs. PRR 1345 market operations BPM changes as it relates to scheduling priorities, and 1344 is the summer readiness 2021 as it relates to market operations BPM. So I'm going to hand it over to Jamal to discuss these PRRs.
Thanks, Nicole, and good morning. So PRR 1360, so we've added new sections due to summer readiness initiative. And this is related to load export and wheeling priorities. And the effective date is targeted for July 15. Of course, this will be pending FERC approval. So we received a few comments on this PRR, and I corrected some of the language due to one comment, and I will be providing more clarity in this draft based on the other comments that we received, and we'll post this as soon as possible. Also from the comments, it seems there is a concern about the business process related to June 29 time frame. As a matter of fact, there is a scheduled external training session. My understanding is scheduled on June the 24th. And this is related to this topic, including the process, the scheduling coordinator to provide the necessary information to the ISO to qualify as a higher priority wheel. So this will be coming up. Hopefully that will explain some of these concerns. And the initial comment period expired on June 15th for this PRR. Next step is to post the recommendation. Are there any questions related to this PRR 1360?
not hearing any questions on 1360.
Okay. So I'll move on to the next one, PRR 1359, also Market Operations BPM. The changes within this PRR related to the were done in Section 665, also due to some readiness initiatives related to load export and wheeling priorities. These changes, of course, will be pending the tariff filing approval expected in June 27th. Did not receive any comment on this PRR, and the initial comment period expired in June 15th, and the next step is to post recommended recommendations. Any questions on this PRR 1359?
As a reminder, if you have a question, please hit pound 2.
You have no questions at this time.
Thank you. I'll move on to PRR 1348. This PRR is submitted by Western Power Trading, requesting to add a description of losses impact on form of receipt, energy LMPs related to resource physically located away from its POR. We commented on this draft as we promised the last time we met, and I posted this the new draft on June the 9th. The initial comment period also expired on June 15, and the next step is to post recommendation. Any additional questions on this particular PRR 1348?
Yeah, no questions at this time.
Thank you. PRR 1345, this change is to address the higher priority rock exports are given in real-time market. Other description changes of import and export leg of wheel through and sub-schedules were provided for additional clarity. We did receive few comments on this topic, mainly opposing these changes. So we filed the tariff provisions in ER 21-1790, and the changes presented in this PRR will be pending this FERC decision. Initial comment period expired in June 15, and the next step is to post recommendations. Any questions on this PRR 1345?
No question at this time.
Thank you. PRR 1344, this change is related to reliability, demand response, dispatch, and real-time price impact changes, management of the surge resources during tight system conditions. Did not receive any comments, and recommendation period expired in June 15, and the next step is to post the final decision. Any questions on this PRR 1344?
None this time.
Thank you. Now next to the EIM BPM changes. First one is PRR 1358. This change is to update the mirror system resources to have auto mirroring enabled between ISO and other EIM-BAs based on the detailed procedure that we have drafted in this PRR. Effective date is targeted for June 15, and we received one comment related to possible reliability impacts due to mismatch or curtailment of a wheel through auto mirror. We agreed with the comment and will respond with a change to our drafted document. Unless if there's any change, or Jamil, I know you're online. If you want to add anything to this, you can go ahead.
Nothing to add. We accepted the change we amended one of the items in the BPM, removed a criteria of the wheel-throughs being limited only to tie gens. So now it's opened up to non-tie gen resources that wheel through that have a change in schedule.
Thank you, Jamil. Is there any questions on this PRR 1358?
None at this time.
Thank you. I'll move on to PRR 1349. This change is related to bid range capacity test and other changes related to the last sold advisory dispatch results. Effective date is June 15. Did not receive any comment on this PRR. Recommendation comment period expired on June 15. And the next step is to post a final decision on this PRR. Any questions?
None at this time.
Thank you. Now I'll move on to market instruments BPM changes. First one is PRR 1357, and this is related to FERC 831 Phase 2 initiative. We added Index P to detail the max import bid price calculation and other miscellaneous edits. Effective on June 15. We received a comment on June 15, and I'm working with the SME to get you a response as soon as possible. And the initial comment period expired on June 15, and next step is to post recommendation. Any questions?
None at this time.
Thank you. Next one is PRR 1354. This change is to further clarify the ISO practices around the processing of reference level change requests. The ISO is also clarifying the content of certain CMI reports. No comments submitted, and the recommendation comment period expired on June 15, and our next step is to post a final decision. Any questions on this PRR 1354?
None at this time.
Thank you. The next one is PRR 1353. This PRR submitted by WPTF to provide clarification related to the negative sub component for the EIRs as a result of market curtailment. If you remember, we reset this PRR to the initial comment period last time, and so we can respond to the initial comment. So we did draft some language that will be hopefully posted this week. Unless if there's any question, or Rahul, if you want to add anything to the rest, you can go ahead.
No questions at this time.
Thank you. And also the initial comment period expires on June 15, and the next step is to post recommendation for this PRR. The next one is 1346. A few changes in market instrument related to summer Readiness initiative focus on the master file section. The effective date is actually on this one is July 15, and of course this will be pending for decision expected June 27. No comments submitted, and the recommendation comment period expired on June 15. Next step is to post the final decision on this PRR. Any questions?
None at this time.
Thank you. The last PRR is 1340. We are clarifying the expectation of the type of cost that can be included in the average cost field in GRBT. No comments submitted. Recommendation comment period expired on June 15, and the next step is to post the final decision. Any question on this PRR or any of the PRR I just mentioned?
Just as a reminder, pressing pound 2 will indicate that you wish to ask a question. You have no questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamal. The next BPM we're going to be talking about is the Reliability Requirements BPM. We have 3 PRRs, 1 in the initial stage and 2 in recommendation stage. PRR 1356 is the 2022 Availability Assessment Hours. PRR 1343 is Resource Adequacy Enhancements Phase 1. PRR 1341 is Maximum Import Capability Multi-Year Import Allocation Reservations and Revisions of the Remaining Import Capability Allocation, as well as increased transparency regarding import allocation. And I'm going to hand it over to Melanie to discuss these PRRs.
First PRR is 1356, which is the 2022 Availability Assessment Hours PRR. The reason for this revision is just to add the availability assessment hours for 2022. So far, no comments have been submitted, and the next step is to post recommendation. Any questions on this PRR?
None at this time.
The next PRR is 1343, which is the Resource Adequacy Enhancement Phase 1 PRR. The reason for this revision was to include the new Resource Adequacy Enhancement Phase 1 tariff updates, as well as some changes related to 2021 summer readiness. There are no comments submitted at this time. The next step is to post final decision. Are there any questions on this PRR?
None at this time.
All right, and the last PRR is 1341, which is the Maximum Import Capability Multi-Year Import Allocation Reservations and Revisions to the Remaining Import Capability Allocation, as well as increased transparency regarding import allocations. The reason for this revision is as a result of the Maximum Import Capability Stabilization and Multi-Year Allocation Stakeholder Process, California Independent System Operator Corporation is revising its available import capability allocation process in order to allow load-serving entities to reserve import capability at the intertie level on a multi-year basis, consistent with their long-term import contracts during each annual import capability allocation process. In addition, the CAISO proposes to revise its existing import allocation process to allocate remaining import capability consistent with load share quantity and to increase transparency by publishing information regarding import capability allocations at each intertie. The recommendation comment period expired on June 15th, 2021, and the next step is to post final decision. Are there any questions for this PRR?
None at this time.
Thanks, Melanie. The next PRR is for our candidate PRR holder registration BPM. PRR 1355 is in the initial stage. We had some minor revisions to correct typographical errors found in the BPM. So the reason is we corrected the errors found in also a duplicate section found in attachment A. There was multiple pages that got printed, and we also removed erroneous information about the PRR application fee. We did not receive any initial comments, and the initial comment period expired on June 15th. The next step is to post our recommendation. Are there any questions on this PRR? As a reminder, you can hit #2 to enter the question queue.
None at this time.
Okay. The next BPM is our metering BPM. We have 1 PRR in the recommendation stage. 1352 is for distribution credit factor requirement and energy imbalance market load aggregation point description. I'm going to hand it over to Priyanka to discuss this PRR.
Hi, good morning. PRR 1352 has been submitted by ISO for the distribution credit factor requirement and also for the energy imbalance market load aggregation point. So we added a new section, section 6.1.5 for the distribution credit factor requirement, and we also added a formula for the ELAP calculation. We have not received any comments, and the recommendation comment period expired on June 15th of 2021, and the next step is to post the final decision.
Do we have any questions about this PRR?
No questions at this time.
Thanks, Priyanka. The next PRR is a direct telemetry BPM. PRR 1351 is for distribution credit factor requirements, and this is in the recommendation stage.
So PRR 1351 is submitted by ISO for the distribution credit factor requirement for the telemetry. So we are adding this requirement effective from July 1st of 2021. We have not received any comments, and the comment period has expired on June 15th, 2021. The next step is to post the final decision.
Are there any questions about this PRR?
No questions at this time.
Thanks, Priyanka. The next BPM is our settlements and billing BPM. We have 3 PRRs, all of which are in the recommendation stage. PRR 1350 is created 6483 hourhead scheduling prices uplift settlement, and 6484 hourhead scheduling process uplift settlement allocation to accommodate the changes as per the real-time market import and export market incentives during this tight system conditions. PRR 1339 is to exempt initial pseudo-tie resources from inter-tie deviation settlement penalty and to exempt resources. And PRR 1338 is to update measured demand pre-calc to fix proration for load aggregation point neutrality and charge code 8835 allocations. And I'm going to hand this over to Brenda to discuss these PRRs.
Thank you, Nicole. Starting with 1350, our reason for revision was for the CAISO to go up with this new 2 charge codes, 6483, 6484, for the consistency of the bid cost make-whole payments for the real-time market hourly block economic imports. Additionally, we made an announcement last week to a small minor change to the preparation guide of 6484, and this is only, 6483. We did a minor revision for the quantity equation. It was just to properly count for self-schedule hourly blocks. So feel free to visit that PRR for additional details. This is effective date 6/1/2021 with anticipated implementation date of 6/29/2021. No comments submitted at this time. We will be posting our final decision by the end of the week. Next slide. 1339 is for the IDS inter-tie deviation settlement. The change here is listed. We are retroactively using the 2/1/2021, and the deployment was on 4/28/2021. We do not have any comments submitted at this time, and our next step is to post final decision by the end of this week. Next, final slide. Lastly, 1338, we provided these changes to various guides listed here below. This was deployed on April 28 with effective date of 1/1/2021. And right now we did not receive any comments, and our next step is to post final decision by the end of the week. Are there any comments for settlements and billing BPM?
None at this time.
Thank you, Will. Hand it back to you, Nicole.
Thanks, Brenda. The next BPM is our outage management. We have 1 PRR in the recommendation stage. PRR 1347 is for Summer Readiness 2021 as it relates to resource adequacy enhancements phase 1. And I'm going to hand it over to Melanie to discuss this PRR.
Hi, Nicole. This is Kalyani. I will do the reading for this PRR. Good morning, everybody. PRR 1347, it was submitted for Summer Readiness 2021. for resource adequacy enhancements phase 1. The reason for revision included all the updates related to the RE enhancements. The recommendation comment period expired on June 15th. We did not receive any recommendation comments. The next step for this PRR is to post final decision. Are there any questions?
Now, this time, as a reminder, please press pound 2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue. You have no questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kalyani. Our final BPM is a demand response. We have one PRR in the recommendation stage. PRR 1342 is for updates to reliability demand response resource bid dispatch and addition of Appendix G to demand response BPM. And I will hand it over to Hoida to discuss this PRR.
Hello, everyone. So PRR 1342 was submitted as an emergency PRR to update the RDR bid dispatchable options to align with summer readiness. It also included an addition of Appendix G to provide more information for the load cap adjustment request form. At this time, we received no comments for the recommendation comment period time and dated on the 15th, and our next step is to post final decision. Any questions?
None at this time.
Thank you. Thanks, Hoida. So the next BPM PRR review monthly meeting is July 27th at 11 a.m. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you may email us at bpm_cm@kaiso.com. Before we end today's call, I want to give everybody one last opportunity to ask questions about any of the PRRs that we went over today. If you have any questions, please press pound 2.
You have no questions at this time.
Thanks, Will. With that, that concludes today's call. I appreciate everyone's attendance, and I hope you have a great day.
This concludes your conference. Thank you for using Event Services. You may now disconnect.